send you a message tomorrow. It's been a bad night here. Someone used one of the suits. We had a spare in the back, a yellow one. Someone used it. Now none of them are acting right.
Bonnie animatronic has been noticeably moved and would like to remind employees that this costume is not safe to wear under any circumstances.
By now, if you're unfamiliar with Five Nights at Freddy's, I genuinely think you've been living under a rock, as it is one of the oldest and most influential horror phenomena of all time. But what made FNAF such a hit? Was it the signature feeling of powerlessness as you were confined to one room and forced to only watch cameras? Or was it the disturbing ambiance that really pulled it all together? Whatever it was, at one point we probably all wondered why anyone would subject themselves to something like this for one night, let alone 5. Well, in this video I am doing exactly that, throwing myself into the shoes of a FNAF night guard, and not just FNAF 1 and 2, but the first 5 FNAF games entirely, and asking myself, what would I do logically to survive Five Nights at Freddy's? And along the way, rating each of the 5 locations on a scale, telling us on 1 to 10 how screwed you would be. Welcome, I'm Mr.Mirage, and this is a logical approach to Five Nights at Freddy's. Throughout the entire FNAF franchise, FNAF 1, apart from starting it all, tends to have the most iconic mechanics from all the games. The primal fear of being sandwiched between 2 doors while horrific sentient animatronics slowly inch towards you isn't something I've felt since Charles Entertainment Cheese first burst from the curtains on my 5th birthday. But unlike that day, I can't run and hide behind multiple game machines. I'm stuck, right here, and all I can do is close the doors at the right time and hope the power doesn't run out. So in order to logically approach this game, we have to find a way to remove the luck factor, because unlike in the game, if you're caught in real life, it's over, meaning there is no room for error. Now, if any of you guys immediately went to either guns or water as a solution, you're the reason your dad left. But in the more serious sense, I won't be using any methods that cause permanent damage to any company property, as it would result in you being terminated and therefore not lasting all 5 nights. Leaving is also something I'm not going to mention, as in FNAF lore, the person working at these shifts has a specific reason, past the obviously terrible pay, to stay all 5 nights. So in this video we will be trying to survive the entirety of each game. I will also only be using the knowledge from the games themselves, not the movie, books, or the theorized lore, as a lot of it is headcanon and a lot of lore is unconfirmed. With that in mind, let's get into the first game. The Five Nights at Freddy's 1 location consists of an office with 2 doors, 2 windows, and each with their corresponding hallway that lead their way into the main party room. The stage houses the 3 main animatronics, along with Foxy off in the side at Pirate Cove, and Golden Freddy being a secret animatronic. There is also, of course, the kitchen and parts and service, but I'm sure you're probably all familiar. In FNAF 1, there are 3 main mechanics: the cameras, the doors, and the power system, each of which, if used incorrectly, will result in your death. However, it's the most simple of the 3 games to survive. I think it's important to mention that in the majority of the games, you have to survive from 12 to 6 AM, for a total of around 8 to 9 minutes, with each hour lasting around 90 seconds each. Now, for this to fit real life, we have to scale it up to the 6 hours that you spend in the restaurant, assuming things like animatronics move at the same rate that they currently do, but they activate around the same time of night. Now, to test how long the power lasts, if you have both doors shut, I went into the game and closed both doors, leading to about 3.5 hours of power, meaning you would have a decent amount of time. But we wouldn't want to do this, as you would be putting yourself in heavy danger once 3:30 rolls around. And you have to avoid Freddy for 2.5 hours in the dark. So I have a few strategies in order to get around this. The biggest key to surviving each of the nights is the doors, which have always struck me as an odd design, as when the power goes out, they are stuck open rather than stuck closed, meaning they use power in order to stay closed. Now, I'm no engineer, but that means some sort of weight or magnetic pulley system is being used to shut the doors. Now, I don't have an exact clue on how this works, so it is largely theoretical, because usually when it comes to power doors, electricity is used to raise them as gravity would naturally pull them down. But this is the opposite, leading me to believe that there is something heavier either locking the doors when they close or being lifted with electricity. Regardless of this, the first hour would have to be spent getting as many tools from around the restaurant as you can find, specifically from parts and service, as there are bound to be tons of tools there. You would then have to dismantle the door controls and disconnect whatever system is being used to lift the door. Once this is done on both sides, you can simply turn off the power activated switch so no power is used, shut off your camera system, and wait out the night while gravity keeps the door shut. And at the end of the night after 6 a.m. you would simply reattach the mechanism before you leave to avoid being fired. Now, if that method doesn't do it for you, I have a few other things you could try. The plot of FNAF 1 is animatronics see humans at night as endoskeletons without their suits, so they will stuff you into one as is protocol. The only problem is the endoskeletons have tons of mechanical items that would kill a person, and as we see in the second game, a Freddy head is used. So you could use the tools from before to clear out a Freddy head to use for emergencies, should things not go as planned. You could also make the office look abandoned by turning off every light, opening both doors, and hiding underneath the desk with the chair pushed in. But that would have to be a last resort, as there's a good chance some of them will still see you. Overall, FNAF 1 is very simple if you know what you're getting into, so I'd rate it a 3 on the We're Fucked scale. Compared to FNAF 1, FNAF 2 is a lot more complicated, and with that, more dangerous. The scenario is simple. You've been hired at the new and improved pizzeria, and this time there are no doors. Instead, a massive hallway and 2 vents surround the player, making the tips from before worth it. Another difference is that the entities are better at detecting you. There is no power except in the flashlight given, which is supposed to stun the animatronics, some of them more than others. Rather than having 5 animatronics like before, there are the 4 originals that we're familiar with, along with 4 new toy versions, and with the addition of Balloon Boy and the security puppet, totaling a now 10 animatronics that we have to deal with. However, it isn't all bad, because 8 of which are satisfied with the solution of just putting on the Freddy mask, which could be worn the entire night if it weren't for Foxy and the puppet. While Foxy simply needs to be deterred via flashlight, the puppet is designed as a sort of security mechanism that is left deactivated as long as the music box plays. The problem, as many people know, is the music box, like many music boxes do, wind down every 20 to 30 seconds and need to be rewound. We can fix this, however, by using a recording device, whether it be a phone or a tape, depending on the technology at the time, to record the audio of a full music box loop, and then playing it over and over in the puppet security cove while the night plays out, with your device, of course, plugged into the wall so it doesn't run out of battery. This would effectively eliminate the puppet as a threat, leaving just Foxy. Now, while in real life you could definitely use the flashlight and mask simultaneously, I want to stay true to the game, and say you would need to alternate due to maybe the mask being too bulky. Regardless, your flashlight will still run out of battery. We do know, however, the building has no limit to its power, so following the same technique as before, we could unscrew a panel or two and remove the vent light and use it to flash Foxy before he kills you. And while this is a bit more dangerous than FNAF 1, it's still not too bad, so I'm going to put it at a 4. FNAF 3 is going to be the most interesting of the bunch as there are no doors, no power restrictions, and no Freddy mask. There's only one threat, and that is the existence of Spring Bonnie, or better known as William Afton in the Spring Bonnie costume, Springtrap. Rather than it taking place in a pizzeria, you'll be surviving Fazbear's Fright, which is the death trap of a theme park designed to contain the horrors of the closed restaurants, which wouldn't be too bad, except many of us are familiar they brought a live animatronic. Fazbear's Fright puts you in a long office with a large window in front of you, and a vent entrance on your right. The building is entirely connected via these vent systems, and a single path of hallways that leads throughout the entire building. Not only is Springtrap a smarter animatronic, your ventilation and sound systems frequently break, causing intense hallucinations as your oxygen levels are low. In layman's terms, this place is rickety as hell, making it much harder to survive. And the best form of surviving is to, in my opinion, not stay in the office. Because unlike the other games, the one animatronic makes it very simple to avoid him, as if you see him coming towards your office, simply go in the opposite direction, as he doesn't seem to be the quickest, and you can use this time to reboot your systems, looping back to the office every now and then when you get the chance. It is important to use the first night where Springtrap doesn't appear in the theme park as a sort of practice to map out your escape routes, as to not get stuck in dead ends, along with playing noises away from your planned path. There is also a good chance Springtrap will be less likely to return to the office if he doesn't think that you're there. Using audio cues to listen for the loud metal clanging that he makes could also help you pinpoint where to go, as well as making loud audio cues in a certain room and then going in the opposite direction. But due to the carefulness required for this one, I would put it at a 6 on the where fuck scale, as the hallucinations could also cause unexpected problems, such as being startled or distracted, and then luring him right to you while you are dazed. Five Nights at Freddy's 4 has similar mechanics to the first game, in the sense that we have two doors that we have to deal with, but with the addition of the closet and the toy Freddy's behind you. This game is the most disturbing by far, as the entire game supposedly exists in the head of the crying child, meaning there isn't really a set logic. The strategy for this, however, has to do with staying awake and keeping the doors shut, as that does seem to deter a majority of the animatronics. So the problem is, how do we guarantee that the doors stay shut? Now, the animatronics don't seem to try too hard to break in, as Evan Afton is able to keep them out simply by holding the door shut, and he is a child. The closet door could simply be blocked by closing it and pushing over the nearby dresser so that the door stays shut. And as for the left and right doors, we have a bit more of an issue, as they both open outwards, making it so putting something in front of it isn't a good option. My solution for this would be to move your mattress on the floor behind you and move the now lighter bed frame between both doors. You could then either use the bed sheets or clothes from the dresser to wrap around the knob and tie them both to the bed, and that way the weight of the door being opened would pull on each other, keeping it closed. Then you would simply just need to use a lamp to deter the mini Freddys, as they obviously hate bright light. Now, part of me wants to do how to logically survive the bite of 87, but the solution is just not to have a freaking sadistic psychopath as your brother. But overall, this is a downgrade danger-wise, sharing a 3 with FNAF 1. As although there are much more mechanics, it is much easier to block the doors, as you don't have to take anything apart.
won't die. You 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 won't die.
Now, Sister Location is the first game to have a drastically different style than all the rest. Rather than each night just being slightly harder than the last, every night in Sister Location has a different mechanic that takes place in a completely different room inside of Circus Baby's Pizza Emporium, a massive underground restaurant mostly navigated via elevators and vent. We start off by shocking a few of the animatronics, followed by being able to go home. On the second night, however, the controls malfunction and the system needs to restart. When this happens, as you can assume, all hell breaks loose, as you promptly meet Baby and her bitty babs, whatever the fuck that is. During this one, you are prompted to hide under the desk, but similar to some analog horrors, you hide with a flashlight, alerting them to your location, with only a small thin piece of hard plastic between you and these entities. My trick for this one would be to place your flashlight inside of the desk compartment and hide behind the vents, so that when they go to open the door, you can either run into the vents behind them, or if you're feeling like the Doom guy, you could kick the shit out of these things that can't be more than, 2 feet tall? These, in my opinion, seem to be the only animatronic that is safe to attack. Following this, you'll be sent into Ballora Gallery, in which Ballora relies on purely sound. This one, while horrific, isn't too hard, just similar to in the game, move quietly, and stop when she gets near. But one thing I want to add to improve your chances is rather than aiming the flashlight at the floor, use your flashlight to track Ballora to find the perfect time to move. You could also distract her by bringing objects to throw away from you, similar to in FNAF 3 with Springtrap. The next animatronic you're going to be coming into contact with will be Funtime Freddy, who responds heavily to audio cues in order to keep him away from you. For this, you could use the puppet strategy from FNAF 2 and play the cues on loop on a recording device, biding your time and being very careful for when you reboot the system. For Funtime Foxy's room, it relies on vision rather than sound. So in order to survive, the best way is to use the flash one time in order to find the wall on the far side from Foxy's stage. You can then feel your way to the vent without having to worry about running into Foxy accidentally. There are multiple parts and service sections in this game, but most of them are just pressing buttons. So afterwards, there would normally be a scripted death for Foxy, so you can end up in a suit for the next night, in a nearly impossible section to survive with the mini arenas. So the trick would be using the previous strategy in order to not let Foxy catch you, then immediately booking it to the exit before Baby kidnaps you. In the final section, all you have to do is avoid fat fingering the keypad. As for the scooping room and Ennard, it's obvious if you expect to survive, you're going to have to avoid the scooping room in general. And something tells me this is a difficult task, as Ennard, or in this case, Ballora's exoskeleton, is following you, but Baby states it is afraid of the scooping room, leading me to believe that there is a time window to book it to the FNAF-style office, where, since it is your final night, you can just quickly close all the doors and repeat the process from FNAF 1 until it reaches 6, and then leave the restaurant as soon as possible. Sister Location is by far one of the most dangerous of the bunch, scoring a 7 on the You're Fucked scale. Overall, surviving Five Nights at Freddy's doesn't seem to be as dangerous as, say, certain analog horrors or the Backrooms or even SCP. It does, however, seem to be a threat to someone who doesn't take matters into their own hands and listens to exactly what the people tell you to do. Now, the methods I talked about today was simply what I would do if I was put in this situation. If you have any ideas, feel free to tell me down below. If you guys want to see more FNAF, there are still 2 more main games I could cover, along with tons upon tons of fan games. So if I get enough requests in the comments, I'll make a part 2. And if you made it this far, consider subscribing. I love bringing you guys the best horror content I can, so any support means a lot. Well, that was quite an adventure. I'm sad to see you go, but don't worry, this doesn't have to be the last time we see each other. I got another cool video, just for you. Hurry, the video's almost over.